All righty, good morning. Day 2 of the Unleashing Potential Summit. It's really good to have everyone here, and for those that are listening after the fact, we're glad that we can give you some really good content and introduce you to some pretty inspiring and amazing women. First up today, we have a very good friend of mine, actually. She's all the way in Canada. I'd like to invite Kaleda Connell to the stage. Yay. Kaleda she is a extraordinary business owner. She's done so well with the first business that she owned that I knew about. Anyway, there could be more stories, I don't know. And then she went on to become the CEO of Kilo, where she has bought that business from $0 from the startup company all the way to a multi-million-dollar business within 3 years, which is absolutely amazing. She is very well renowned for her systemizing and processes of businesses, which, as you know, is the absolute foundations of a business and is the only way that we can scale them up. She literally has been cracking the whip on me for years, not to mention so many others. So if you ever want to know anything about systems and processes, she is your gal. She is also offering us a social media audit for our VIPs. So if that's you, you've got that to look forward to. I think I need it in all my businesses too. So I'm coming at you after this summit. But without further ado, Kaleda, welcome to the Sisterhood Collective Unleashing Potential Summit. Thank you so much for being here. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First off, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that microphone is like fancy.
It's good, right? Yeah, I've tested a few of them. So yeah, honestly, you did a pretty good job. I don't have a lot to add. Yes, I am from Canada. I am just a country bumpkin. I grew up on a farm with a nurse mother and a farmer father. And entrepreneurship was kind of bred into me from really like a young age, but it was never something like we were forced into. So my brother and I were both entrepreneurs, and my sister is not, but yeah, we just kind of like had that sort of in our blood, but it didn't really come to fruition for me until after I had my first job in sales, which was selling fertilizer to farmers, which was a very unforgiving and quite sexist job, honestly. You get a redhead in a big truck driving in your driveway. Of course you want her to come back, right? So yeah, it's just an interesting job. And I knew within about a year or two of doing that I was, one, not a good employee, and two, I wanted to do something on my own. So yeah, that was how my entrepreneurial journey started. But yeah, you're right. My specialty or my uniqueness is building systems. I love to do it. It's a weird and not sexy type of thing to do, but it is really, truly my passion. And it is one main characteristic that you will see in businesses that will be successful and scale well and be quite profitable and have happy staff and that kind of thing.
Well, it's absolutely fundamental to businesses for them to succeed, having learnt the hard way myself. Tell me, what gave you the courage to, branch out and do something a little bit different and start a business in the first place?
I didn't have the courage, but this is, I do have two business partners in this business, John and Mateo. I'm truly very lucky to have the business partners that I do have. They are not only wicked smart, but we've built a team that absolutely uplifts women. And it is just so good to have like men like that in my life and in our company's life, which is amazing. So we saw a need in the market, and we decided we were going to solve that need because we knew we were the most capable of doing it, and we had that need ourselves. And so what we did is we just said, hey, all these gym owners are struggling with managing their websites, managing all these systems, trying to communicate with their clients, and they're using 18 pieces of software to do this. And we know how to solve this problem. And so that's what we did. We just set out to solve the problem, and so far, so good.
Yes, the business has really come right around. I'm like, you guys are constantly improving it and adding all these features, which is amazing. So tell me, what is it that, I mean, you've built this business from the startup. It's about 3 years old now. It's a multi-million-dollar international organization. How do you build a loyal following and get your name and brand out there?
I mean, it's as a brand new business without already having some connections, that can be a little bit tough. I'm not going to use the word lucky, but I don't really have a different word to use, but we were lucky in that we were gym owners in the beginning. And so we already were part of that network and we were part of that community. And we were able to then sell to those people who we had already developed that know, like, and trust with. We had developed other products, like educational products in the past, where we sold that to gym owners and they were able to get really good results with that. So we had already developed that know, like, and trust. But before that, in order for me to do that, I really, like, as a gym owner and being part of this gym owner crew, I actually started developing SOPs and giving those away for free. And that was really the start of, like, my quote unquote personal brand that I didn't know that I was building. And that, like, helped us develop that loyal following again. So really, like, just being a good human and delivering on the things that you say you're going to deliver on. And then when you go to do that next thing, you will already have some of those people in your corner.
You know, there's a lot of people that struggle. That, like, there's some very ambitious women out there, which I love. They want more. We all want more, but it's like we sit back and we're like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I want to do something, but I don't know. And I feel like you've kind of just described a very good way for people to go, if you want a side hustle, which can then turn into a business, or just to take the plunge and take that leap and do a new business. It's to do something that you're passionate about, or something that you're already an area or an industry that you're already in, and finding a solution to someone's problem in that field, and then going out and branding it like you have. And then the other part to that you've kind of said is that your personal branding is important too first, because that's where you're going to start building that loyal following.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting things that you just said there. And one was that, you know, you have to find the needs of the client. Like, it's really often that women, not just women, people in general, like, we're like, oh, I want to start my own business. What should I do? And it's like, that's the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, where do I see people struggle? Where do I see that there's a need in the market? And how can I fill that need? Right? Like, when I started my gym, it was in a teeny tiny little town in southwestern Ontario, less than 3,000 people, actually less than 2,500 people. If we're getting to be like nitty gritty and exact, there wasn't a gym for, I realize that maybe it's only Canadians that talk like this. And we say, like, distance in minutes, like how long it takes you to drive somewhere.
Yeah,
but there wasn't.
It matters here too.
Okay. Because someone said, like, we don't talk like that in, like, our country. And I was like, oh, sorry. But yeah, there wasn't another gym in another, like, 45-minute drive radius. And so I knew, like, hey, if I'm not going to drive 45 minutes to go to the gym, neither is everybody else here. And so one cheeky, funny little story that I tell people is, like, when I was looking for a house to buy in that town, my non-negotiable was I had to have a garage, because I needed to work out. And I needed to have, like, a space for me to, like, buy my equipment and, like, work out in and whatever. And I had a rig and weights in the garage before I even had a couch in the living room. So, like, I knew that that was a priority for me. And it, like, as soon as I started, like, sharing my journey with building this tiny little gym and this tiny little garage, and, you know, I had people reaching out to me and was able to develop it that way, just through, like, need. Right. So yeah, I don't remember the other point that I was just going to tell you, but I think that is, like, you have to think about it in that way.
Yep. And I think the other part to it was personal branding, and something that I've been listening to lots of podcasts, as we, all do, and you're constantly learning, but they say, actually, Bonnie was talking about it in yesterday's summit, where she said, be confident at the things you are competent at. And like for you, it is systemizing and auditing and reviewing and rewriting all these processes, and you're good at it. And you've built this personal brand on that. You kind of,
to me, it's like it's obvious, right? Like, hey, step 1, step 2, step 3, like this should be obvious. And if you miss a step, like your staff or whoever, your lead or whoever, like they're going to get blocked and they're not going to know what to do next. Like what's obvious to you is not obvious to your staff or your leads or whomever. And like just building a personal brand around the things that you're passionate about. Plus then, like if you're talking about it a lot and people have questions for you, you'll find the need in those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's worth repeating. Like if you're talking about it a lot and people have questions for you, you'll find the need in those questions.
I don't mind myself a nice little lunch with the ladies, right, with my girlfriends. And it was during that kind of time. It's during those times where you're sitting there and everyone's, they're relaxed and everyone's starting to, talk about their needs and their problems and things like that. That's when I've started to identify. That is when the first idea for Sisterhood Collective came to me as well. So like I find, as you say, if you just stop and listen to people, or if you have the needs yourself, you're going to find that other people need them. And so if you're looking for a side hustle or a business, that's probably a really good place to start. But what I wanted to kind of segue into, Kaleda, we were talking prior to the summit, and we were talking about keeping your audience engaged. So what are some of the strategies that you've kind of found that have worked for you to keep your audience engaged on a daily basis? Because there's no point having 10, 15,000 followers or 100,000 followers if they're not actually listening, reading, and buying into what you're selling. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So again, it's really like listening to people, right? So I think I'll give the example of doing this social media audit. And actually I'll back up a little bit farther from that even. So just before I started doing these social media audits, I actually like didn't really want to be on social media. And I knew that like with Kilo, we would, in order for us to like get to that next level that we're working on right now, like I would probably have to start building up my, or revisiting my personal brand, let's say. And I was like, I've been so good at staying off social media for so long. And I don't really know if I want to get back into this, but I said like the business, like, this is what I want to do. The business is important. It's like, I have to do this for my clients. I have to do this for my staff and for myself to become the person that I know that I want to be. And so I just started like putting stuff out there. And for some reason, a gym owner had commented on something that I did. And I was like, I wonder if they use our service. And so I clicked through and I looked at their website and I looked at their social media and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, how is any lead going to be able to get off of this and onto like into their gym? Like that's the point, right? And so I just made a post and was like, hey, who wants me to do an audit of your social media? Like, I'm not going to be nice. I'm going to be honest. And like, let's give it a go. And I had probably 200 comments on that post, which was hours of my time. And I did probably 8 to 10 minute videos for everyone, just walking them through that. And I was like, people are still commenting on it. I literally had to like stop and have people like, we need to stop and I need to do this in a more organized way. And so again, I was really just like listening to what people needed. If nobody had commented on that, I wouldn't have kept doing it. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of evolved into this like whole social media push that I'm doing. All of the content, or the majority of the content that I'm producing at the moment, is around these social media audits. And so it goes back to what we said earlier, like if you're just producing content and it's not going anywhere, like that's a problem. But if you're producing content and people are asking questions, like lean into that more. And it makes it just so much more important to like look at the analytics of what you're doing, like what's hitting, what's reaching people outside of like your followers and that kind of thing. And so like the first step is just like produce. And then the second step is see what's hitting and just lean into that even more and just keep listening.
And so how do you feel like getting this more, like finding these strategies that work to get better engagement with your following, how has that impacted your business?
It's literally unreal. Like, it's crazy. I started producing content in October of last year, really regularly. And so most of my audience, I know my audience very, very well. And that's probably like a whole nother conversation about getting to know your audience, but I know that they hang out on Facebook. Most gym owners hang out on Facebook. They have gym owner groups. They bitch about the same things. They all ask about the same floor cleaners. I know my audience so well that I knew that, okay, so Facebook is going to be the place to go. And so I had a few different strategies that I was going to hit. And I was doing it all myself, which is like craziness because now I have like almost a full-time assistant who's doing all of it. Plus I'm producing all of the content. But yeah, like I said, I started producing content in October. Near the end of September, beginning of October, we were getting about 50 leads a month to our Kilo website prior to that time. And that was pretty consistent. Like, let's say from February to September, it was like 50, 60 leads a month. The last few months, it's pretty consistently been close to double that.
That's amazing.
So like just by posting once a day, and like making some connections, like I'm getting double the amount of leads, like that is time I will spend all day long doing, right?
But it's not just posting daily. So it's not about the frequency and consistency is important. Consistency is important, but it's the content that you're producing, right? As you say, you're listening to what your audience needs. So yeah,
that's right.
On that.
You're absolutely correct. But like at the beginning, I was just like, I don't know, I'm just going to put something out there, right? Like, well, I don't know. So I just started producing and I was like, hey, what's going to hit? What are people not liking? And then I would actually like post, like you said, like you need engagement. Like there's no point in people like following you or being friends with you on Facebook or any of these platforms if they're not going to engage. And so you can actually ask those questions publicly, like on Facebook, you do like a question post or you do like a question in your Instagram stories and see what people want to hear. And like, that's engagement, right?
So what if they're not engaging though? What are we doing wrong? If someone's not engaging in your posts, what are you doing wrong?
I mean, that's a tough question because it's even hard to know what you're doing right sometimes, right? Like you produce a bunch of content, all of a sudden, like I don't have any posts that like go viral or anything, but if you produce a bunch of content and one thing goes viral, sometimes you can't even answer that question. And I've been doing a ton of research on like what makes TikToks go viral, what makes Instagram posts go viral. And really there's no one good thing like that I can tell you, like, this is why like yours goes viral and this is why this other one didn't. Like there's no good answer there. But I will say like the more you produce, the more you will see, like even if it's like 2 people like one thing a little bit more than the rest of it, like just lean into that. And the other thing is like if you have customers, talk to them. Like what do they need? Right? What are they interested? What do they need? Like what are their problems? And like produce that stuff. Because it's likely, and I've been very guilty of this in the past, but it's likely that some of the content is like self-serving or you're trying to sell too hard or something like that. For me personally, like I've gone through like some courses where I've tried to like figure out my avatar and figure out my message and all that stuff. And so that was really useful to go through in order to make sure that I was talking to the people that I needed to talk to.
All right. So let's go back to the fact that you've created and built a multi-million-dollar international business in less than 3 years, because it's kind of cool. It's like fangirl. I think that's amazing. And it's such a, imagine there's been a lot of change along the way for you. So I'm just curious, like, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced when scaling your business up and trying to increase revenue?
I mean, you name it. Like it hasn't been easy. We started it right at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, like literally that week. So there was that. How do we service gyms that are no longer open, right? How do we build a team that is completely remote that we're probably not going to be able to see for months on end? How do we like have the best onboarding sequence of anyone in the industry? How do we have even better customer service than anyone in the industry? And then like, if you fast forward to today, like all of these tech companies are doing layoffs. And, how do we like not do that? And how do we continue to have really good support while the other people are like, struggling and that kind of thing? So there's been a ton. Probably the biggest challenge for me was building a remote company because I've never done that before. And that just meant like getting everybody on the same page. It meant having really good SOPs, like the best SOPs I've ever written. And then having them in a place that was really accessible. And I think most business owners struggle with putting SOPs in a place where your staff can actually access it. Like it's no good putting it in a gigantic Google Doc and it's not like people can't find what they're looking for, or putting it like printing it off and having it in the office where like, what if the situation was that the staff got locked out and the SOP is in the office? Like it doesn't work like that. Right. So yeah, that was probably the biggest one. So there's tons of tech I had to sift through, tons of process we had to like figure out, but with a lot of collaboration and testing of tech, we did get there.
Okay, and so then building a remote company, we have a lot of our followers have online businesses as well as some bricks and mortar as well. But for the companies that are remote and they're trying to, or even if they're not actually, but they're hiring people that are dislocated to them, how did you go about that? What's been successful for you? Because I imagine you've got people all over the world because of the fact that you service the world. So you've got to allocate those time zones. So how do you guys build a good, solid and strong team and a loyal team?
Yeah. So you have to hire people that have essentially the same values that you do. And so for us, like we have to do like a vibe check, right? So they get an interview and we do a vibe check. And like, if they're wearing a suit and tie, like they're probably not our vibe. If they're wearing a hoodie, like you're my vibe. Right. So yeah, you have to kind of do a vibe check. I did quite a bit of reading of, I should find the book. There's two books. One's called Remote, and the other's called Rework, and they're written by the guy who created Basecamp. Oh, yeah. And I think it's Jason something, and for some reason I cannot remember his last name. But yeah, I took many pages from his books in terms of like having a remote team and like trying not to friggin' micromanage them, right? Because it's really easy when you don't, maybe not for like people who are younger than me, but it can be easy to think like, I don't see them working. How do I know that the job's done? Right. So we had to create systems that let us not micromanage people and let them work on their own schedule and trust them and that kind of thing. But it's very clear very early on, like if it's working or if it's not. Mm-hmm. And like firing people is hard. I've done more firing in the last 3 years than I've done in my whole career. I've also like kept people I brought people from my other businesses into this business, and they've stayed with me for as long as I've had, them around. So tons of challenges, like all kinds of things come up. But I think like, when building a remote team, you have to be really diligent on like having those systems in place where you don't have to constantly check in on people. But I also think in the early days, like it's okay to have meetings. Like don't be like influenced by these people who are building these remote companies. Like meetings are bad, right? Like it's okay to have meetings and check-ins in the early days, but then just constantly check in, like, do we still need this? Is this still useful? Is this a good use of everybody's time? Am I providing value in this meeting? And then if the answer is no, like, cut it, right?
Yep. All right. So obviously you're managing a lot of people. You're also building a brand. You're doing a lot of stuff, let's say that. So what sort of apps and resources would you recommend to people building a business right now?
I mean, Laurie, I really don't think I'm doing more than you. Like, I think you've got quite a lot going on too. So, but yeah, so I use a few. I don't love all of them, but for project management, we do use Basecamp, and I do really like that. But that's like for our company. The one that I will say, like, if you get any piece of software, it's this one. It is Notion. Notion is like our Bible. It is where all of our SOPs live. It's where my content calendar lives. It's just where you can produce so many templates. I use it on a daily basis for sure. And then I'm like Jolene, like I live by my calendar as well. So yeah, Google Calendar.
Yeah, if it's not on my calendar, it's gone. It's not happening at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, appreciate that. So here's final question for you. If for the women that are out there that are a little bit, something's holding them back right now, what's the advice you would give to them to get them to move forward and forge a new path towards whatever success looks like for them?
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought about this question, and, I think it's really easy for me or someone else in my position to say, like, just take action. But that's not enough, right? Like, because then the question that comes after that is like, take action on what? Like, what am I supposed to do? Where's my clarity? Like, what, should I just start creating content? Should I start writing SOPs? Like, what action should I take? And so I think probably the best advice that I can give at this moment is, like, take a course or hire a mentor and then take action. Like, get some clarity and then take action. If you're just not sure what the next step is for you to take, if you are sure on the next step, do it. Like, and it's going to be bad, and that's okay. Like, if I could show you the first YouTube video I ever made, it's a 14-minute rowing video in my garage, and it is garbage, like hot flaming garbage. But I started, and I bet nobody watched it, and that's okay. But like, just, I started, and I just kept going after that. Same with my social media audits. The first one's like 12 minutes long. Like, nobody's going to watch that. But then you get into a rhythm, you start leaning into the things that you really like and that kind of thing. And you're just not going to know what that next step is. You're not going to know what that thing is that you like doing unless you do take that action. But if you're not sure what the next step is, that's okay. Take a course, get a mentor, and then take some action after that.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to be Googling Kaleda Connell rowing video in Canada.
I hope it doesn't exist anymore. Like, I couldn't find it when I started my new YouTube channel. So, like, I hope it's gone.
Well, I'm going to have to do some back end researching here, because I reckon I can get a few more views on that for you. So it wasn't wasted. No, that's really cool. Look, Kaleda, appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and giving us some really useful tips, some books as well, the apps as well. We'll definitely look into those. We'll be sharing a little bit more about you post-summit, definitely. And obviously, if anyone wants to take advantage of the social media audit, then reach out to Kaleda, and she will help you out there. So thanks very much, Kaleda.
For sure. Yeah, no problem. I do those for free, just kind of like for fun. You might be on a waiting list for like a couple months to get it, but I'm happy to do those for anybody. Cool. Thanks so much, Laura. This is awesome.
Thanks, Kaleda.